Alright, the MARS1 already welcomed you, and I will do the same, so welcome. Today we'll talk about what this thing can do. We'll go over the basic features and how you would use it basically. If you're interested in the ideas behind it, then you can also watch the video that I already made about that. Today I will really focus on the practical part. So first let's check what we're actually looking at here. Let's very shortly say goodbye. Let's unplug this and check it out in 3D. This is obviously still a prototype. The shell is 3D printed. So this is how it looks. This here at the bottom is just so it holds still on my piano. So this is the casing. You have a bunch of rotary encoders with LEDs around them. You have the power. You have the MIDI in. You have 8 channel outputs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have a stereo mix out, left and right. And you have a headphone jack for also the mix out. So let's actually plug it in. Then we already are ready for saying welcome again. And this is already all we need to be ready to play. So let's check out what all this cool stuff here is about. You see on most of the rotary encoders, you have a divided scale here. And that's just because it's already enough rotary encoders. We don't need more. So on most of them, I bundled 2 functions into one. Not more than that, because I still want to be able to do everything with one motion, right? So there's nothing that you have to go to a menu or something to access. It's all right here. This is just the one thing that you have the 2 functions per one encoder in some cases. And the idea is that when you turn any of these knobs just like this, then you're modifying the left hand setting, the first one. And when you push it and at the same time rotate, then you are modifying the second one. Okay, let's reset that. And you already saw that the LEDs will always show you the current state of each setting. And while you are changing something, the display will show you some visualization of what you are changing, right? For example, here, like the different waveforms. There's also a menu here, but this is the basic mode of operation. When you change something, the display will show you what you're changing. So what should we change first? I would say let's start with the channel-related settings, because this is kind of the elephant in the room, especially if you haven't seen the first video. We already saw the 8 audio outputs today, and they somehow will get filled by the MIDI input, of course. We'll get to that in just a second. But here we already also see some LED indicators for 8 channels, and we have wave and volume for 8 channels. Let's first reset again, so we have a clean start. And so if I play a note, it's routed to this channel here, and so it will be played with this waveform, triangle wave right now, and with this volume, full volume right now. And so I could change the volume. Or I could change the waveform. And so if you play multiple notes at the same time, you can have them in different waveforms. For example, you could play 8 notes, and each of the 8 notes could have its own waveform. And you can set this to this, and this here, this here, this here, this here, 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 here. And now when I play something, by the way, we're using the stereo output here because this is all that the common video platforms would allow. So this means that currently you hear the out channel numbers, channel 1, 3, 5, 7 on your left side, and the even ones, channel 2, 4, 6, 8 on your right side. Okay, so now let's check how the routing actually works. So when I played this note here, why did it land in channel 5? And if I play the next note, let's say, why is it channel 6? And so on. And this you can set here with the voicing. Currently it's on A2, which is automatic 2. We have 3 auto settings, and this is one of the key concepts and key features of the MARS1. That's also what the MA stands for, musically aware, because we're trying to automatically find the best voices for each note. And to get a feeling about how important and cool this actually is, we can also turn that off for a second. Let's actually start the clean preset again. And so you see we also have the bottom up voicing, the top down voicing, and the filling from the sides. So we can push down and go to the bottom up, for example. And so now the first note that I play always lands in voice 1, which for us is also channel 1. We get to the distinction in just a bit. So this will be voice 1, channel 1. Then if I play a second one, it goes here, goes here, goes here. And if I play something like this, then obviously it works fine, right? But if I play it the other way around, it doesn't work so well, right? Because the first note starts in channel 1, but now if I add a second note, then this has to go in channel 1 because it's bottom up, right? And so even in the mixed down stereo setup, you already hear it, that this first note is jumping from your left side to your right side. And then of course, if we only play chords like this, then we could go to the top down setting, so this will work fine. But then we have the exact same problem the other way around. Now the notes are jumping again. And in the auto setting, both of these will work fine. And of course, it can also handle more complex situations, but let's just verify this first. So and if I play some broader chords, okay, so none of these notes are jumping between left and right anymore, and we can go to the next feature. And right next to the voicing, we have the temperament setting. And you see that by default, it's set on equal temperament, which is the standard for most keyed instruments right now. And that means that each note has a fixed frequency, and also the relation between a note's frequency and the frequency of the last note, the note below it, is always the same. So the relation is the same for each pair of two notes. And that means that a chord will sound equally good in each key. So if I play, for example, the C major, this will sound just as good as, for example, the B major. But also none of these chords will sound perfectly clean, because this idea of having 12 steps with equal relations is a compromise. And this is solved by the just temperament. You already see it now says just in C. So if you play the C major now, it sounds perfectly clean, cleaner than before. You hear that? But this has the downside that if we play something that's a bit away from the key of C, for example, B major again, it will sound terrible. We would have to adjust the key to B actually. Then it would sound fine again. But you can imagine that while you're actually playing something, you have no chance of turning this key knob here quickly enough. And that's why usually everybody uses the equal temperament. And that's where now the magic comes in here. We have also 3 auto settings for the temperament here. By the way, it's 3 auto settings for temperament and 3 for the voicing, because I'm still playing around with what works the very best, but all of them work fine already. So in any of the auto settings, we could play the C. And it sounds good. And we can play the B. And it also sounds good. And each of these sounds better with the auto than with the equal. Let's check that. And same for the B. Okay, let's reset again and then very briefly go over the rest of the settings. So we have a reverb, that's very basic, obviously, just with the level and the length. And let's just turn it up a little bit, just for not sounding too dry by playing around. Then we have a slide. It's actually a fun effect. The fine mode is not that obvious. It's kind of more subtle. That's just because if you play any chord in the auto temperament, it can be that when you add notes to the chord, then the other notes will slightly shift to achieve the perfect relations of the frequencies, right? And this shift can be instant or it can be via sliding. And when we set it to direct, then it will also slide between any 2 notes. And then we can set how quickly it slides. Let's set it to something quite slow. Sounds kind of goofy like this, of course, but it can actually be used in very cool ways. And also this is only possible because we are doing the voice separation, right? Because if you don't have the separated voices, then you wouldn't know from which note to which you slide as soon as you have 2 notes playing, right? So if I play then it has to know that the upper note is changing and the lower one is staying the same. Okay, then we have 4 high settings here. We have attack, decay, rise, and max also. I think at least 2 of them are clear. So attack just says how fast the note starts in the beginning, right? So it was set to maximum attack, so instant. If you set it to something lower, then it will take some time. Decay is also probably clear. Right now it's set to no decay, so it's staying constant. No matter how long I hold the note. When I set it to something more, it will fade out. And for some goofy effects, I could of course also set it to decay very quickly. Let's set that back. Then we have rise, which, as the name implies, lets the volume actually rise after the attack is done already. And this is basically fighting against the decay. So you can decay and then also rise. And depending on how exactly you set it, it can actually in the end rise above the initial level. And that's why then also you have the max, because probably you don't want to have it at infinity because it will clip in the end. So you can set the max and then you can, for example, set it not very high. So it will actually be cut before it clips seriously. So now you already heard one effect that maybe you wonder where it comes from, because it didn't just get louder, it also changed its sound. And this comes from the clip setting here. because we usually don't want to hard clip at 0 dB, right? We want to do it in a controlled fashion, and so you can set a threshold for clipping. And you see, for example, 0 is 0 dB clipping, which means that already at 0 we are intervening. You could also set it a little bit higher, because if your general volume is below 0, and then if you have some added volume, for example by the rise here, then you could allow to go, for example, 1 dB over your maximum. Or if you want to use it as an effect, basically like a distortion effect, you could also set it to below 0, so it will basically always catch you. And then, well, let's actually set it to -2 so I can demonstrate it better. Because now you see we have here this threshold that basically intervenes at a certain point. But then we have the softness also here, which means that if we are not soft at all at 1, then it will just cut it here at the threshold. Or if we introduce some softness, it will actually allow it to go a little bit over the threshold. And this is basically what is then a controlled distortion. So now even if we set the rise to 0 again, so we don't rise at all, we never clip from this side, and let's actually choose a very clean waveform. Let's choose the sine form. By the way, for the case that you want to change all of these waveforms or all of these volumes at the same time, so that you don't have to turn 8 knobs, you can click here for sync, and then you can set it. So let's set all of them to sine wave. We still have the threshold to below 0, so it should clip already when I just play something. And it does, right? We still have the decay on, I just heard, so let's stop this. And if we want to make it more clear, we can also reduce the softness, so it will clip it harder. Also, we can set how dynamically we want to have our volume. Currently, it's not dynamic at all, which means that no matter how hard I play, softly or hard, it doesn't make a difference. Let's actually go back to the clean preset. And now when I turn it up, the velocity will matter more and more. And so in the full setting, when I play it very quietly, it's actually quiet, and when I play it hard, it's stronger. Let's set it back to the bass again. And right next to it, we also have a bass boost, which means that depending on how we set it, we can boost the lower notes. It's not an equalizer, so it's not based on frequency, it's actually based on the note. So the frequencies stay untouched, but if we turn the bass boost fully up, then the lower notes will get boosted. For example, this here. You hear in the setting, even our controlled clipping is notable here. Let's reset that first. Let's have a look at the volume situation in general. We already saw the channel volumes in the beginning. Then now you see here we have a system volume, which means that it makes basically all the channels louder or quieter. And then here for the stereo mix that you're hearing right now, we have a mix volume also. Also, we can set the mix from stereo to mono if we want that for some reason. Currently it's set to stereo. And when you change one of these volumes, for example the final mix volume here, then we see the full schema. It actually starts with the system volume here. We can change this so you see it. Which that can then get combined with the channel volumes. Then the mix and the way of mixing it, combine it to the final output volumes. This is in dB, by the way. That's why 0 is basically the maximum, and you always want to land with some 0 or negative value so it doesn't clip. Let's once again reset. And let's have a look at the timing. Now this lag is necessary because in all of these calculations that we are doing for the voices and for the temperament or for the frequencies, we want to be able to operate on the actual notes of the chord that will be played. And if you think about it, even if I play a chord seemingly at the same time, I will never be able to play these 3 notes very, very exactly at the same time, right? There will always be some nanoseconds or something between them. And so I have to set based on how much I trust myself to actually be precise. You see right now I don't trust myself very much in this video setting. And because I set the select to the maximum value, which we can check, this means that between the first note and actually starting the calculation or finishing the calculation and applying the notes to the output, we have, depending on some other measures, we have 40 to 80 milliseconds. And in a more controlled setting, we could actually turn this down, so we have only 3 to 6 milliseconds. So let's turn this back up and look at the reset value here. The reset value means, let's turn it here to see what it does. This means that after some time, for example, here is 1000 milliseconds, 1 second, that after I play nothing for 1 second, all the algorithms here will reset. Let's make an example for this. When I play some notes that start in a lower tenor, for example here, then it will keep the voice. And in the end, I ended with a very high note and a very low voice, which was great. I would want it like this because it means that this line that I just played has a consistent tone and comes from the consistent speaker also. And so this is all good. But now, if I have the reset and then I start again after some time, then now if I play the high note, I will actually want it to play in a higher tenor, right? Because the previous piece is already done. And so it starts here. And it goes all the way down. And now if I wait a bit, then I can play in the other channel again. And then everything we just talked about, we can set in presets here. So there's no preset I always turned for resetting it to the preset I had started before. You can actually make some changes. Let's say you want to change all the waveforms here to this and change the high curve. Then you can store it, let's say in preset number 4. And then you can go back to it when you want. Okay, so I think we have about everything. So for finishing up today, let's once again do a demo. I programmed in some demo pieces here that are just MIDI streams. They come in exactly as the MIDI from the keyboard. It's just so that I can have my hand free for playing around here and I don't have to actually play the piano. And I'd say let's actually do the same piece we did last time. Don't worry, the others will come. Just let's do this once more so that we have kind of 2 versions of it and you can compare them. And also I forgot one thing last time, which is the temperament setting. I didn't use it at all, I just left it on equal temperament. But this is actually on purpose, I just forgot to mention why I did it. Which is that with this Bach kind of music, it has quite a strong effect with the drifting of the voices, which is what I explained earlier with the sliding, when the notes that are already there have to change their frequency a little bit because other notes are coming to it. And basically Bach is this all the time. And so the effect is quite strong and I will have to figure out a way to make the effect this creates less prominent, I would say. But just for showing what I mean, today I will shortly go to the auto settings and then go back because then we can focus more on the other ones. So let's go. I will try to not do something very stupid this time, but we'll see how that goes. Alright, so these were once again some interesting sounds. I was a little bit more careful than last time and I did not regret that. The one time I turned the slide all the way up, I just wanted to see what happens. And it turns out I could have survived without wearing that. But anyway, thank you for watching. I will be very happy for any feedback on this, any opinions, let me know. And see you next time.